Hello and welcome to the YVC Writing Center MLA In-Text Citations presentation. This is a quick look at how MLA In-Text Citations work within your academic papers. If you're looking for something a little more exhaustive with more details, we definitely recommend you head on over to the MLA Style Center, the Modern Language Association Style Center, and they got these nifty tabs here you can click on and check out things more in depth. Also, if you visit our YVC Writing Center webpage, which looks like this, of course, and you scroll down past all the goodies here, here's our orientation video. In our resources, you'll see MLA handouts that you can download as PDFs. Works cited list, page formatting, MLA in-text citation. Plus we've got our videos. These are the old ones. By the time you're watching this, we will have updated them to the new ones. Very cool. So some neat options there. A little extra support, but let's get on with the show. We know that all y'all are busy with work, life, school, family, all kinds of things. And MLA can be complicated, of course, so we want to keep this quick so you can return to it often and kind of hit your brain with all the details of MLA so you can feel more confident as you write your papers for YVC. And of course, this is the MLA 9th edition, which is pretty darn new, 2021. All right, so let's get started. Part 1. Options for in-text citations. The first time you use a source, give the author's full name in your prose, which is your right here. There is your prose, the students. And place a page number in parentheses after the borrowed material. So here we've got one author, Anna Kin, writes, comma, and then the quote, "The fury of our past, like sand, gets everywhere," end quote. And this was found on page 19. So this must be the first time the student used the writer, so we want to give the full name Anna Kin, which helps your readers with some context. All right, more options for in-text citations. Following what we just learned, in later citations, use the author's last name only, either in the prose or in the parentheses with the page number. So here we don't see Anna, we just see Kin. Kin goes on to say, comma, quote, "After a time, we can find even our own lack of faith disturbing," end quote, and that's found on page 22. You also can change things up, of course, and put the author's last name in the parenthetical with your page number. And here we can see eventually, comma, the quote, and then Kin back here, 22. So you've got some options you can play with in your paper. Note, make sure the in-text citation matches a corresponding entry on your works cited page, where you give the full publication information for each source you use. And we have two corresponding videos for your works cited pages in MLA, which you can check out. Okay. In-text citation types, and there are many types. We're going to look at the most common ones. So let's say you have a source and it has no author or no page number. Use the source's title if there is no author, if the title is long and appears in a parenthetical citation. Shorten it to the first noun phrase. If your source does not have page numbers or other location markers, omit that element. So we can see the full title here, Hermione Granger and the House Elf Manifesto. Fantastic. And we can see a shortened version down here, Hermione. Shortened because on your works cited page, your reader will find the entire title. And this way it won't clutter up your paragraphs and sentences. So here, let's look at the sentence. In the anonymous fanfic, Hermione Granger and the House Elf Manifesto, comma, Hermione admits the fast fashion industry is, quote, both a challenge and a boon to the cause of freedom, end quote. So, no author, right? And no page number, no problem. This will tell your readers where to go on your works cited page, as will this, Hermione. Moving right along, another type. Let's say you have a source with two authors. Well, you just want to use "and" to connect the names of the authors. In this case, the student is using something as a source that was written by both Sanchez and Smith. So Sanchez and Smith write that, quote, as the fields of cybernetics and genetic medicine advance, our definition of humanity will necessarily expand. And that's found on page 2. And here the student has swung both names into the parenthetical, Sanchez and Smith, so that they could write the sentence a little bit differently. Kind of cool. What do you do if you have 3 or more authors? In the prose, your sentences, use the first author's name followed by a collective reference to the others. If the citation occurs in parentheses, use the first author's name plus et al., which is Latin for and others, I believe. So let's see how that works in a sentence. Wayne and Associates, there you go, one author and a collective, many others, adamantly state, quote, justice must be enforced at the supranational level. That's found on page 1. So we don't want to put Wayne and Associates in the parenthetical, so down here you can see it's just Wayne et al. With the dot, since it's not quite a period. And that's found on page 1. Great. Organization as an author. This could be the CDC, Starbucks, Boeing, Raytheon, all kinds of organizations out there that publish their own articles on their websites or other places. Use the full name of the organization in your prose, but shorten long names to the first noun phrase in the parenthetical citation. So here we see an organization that is the author, Coalition for Foundlings. The Coalition for Foundlings states that it has launched a new one-to-one membership program, and that's found on page 2 of the source. Cool, not the student's paper. So here, same thing. The student is paraphrasing something. I don't see any quotes. And the author is the Coalition for the Foundlings, so we've shortened it to Coalition since it's in the parenthetical. And Baby Grogu, Baby Yoda, will be very happy about this. All right, indirect quotation. This one can be tricky. We see this from time to time in the Writing Center. You go to a source, let's say it's written by Stephen Colbert. You're like, ooh, this is cool. You're going to cite a sentence within the article written by Stephen Colbert. But Stephen Colbert is actually quoting Jimmy Fallon in the article. So now you're quoting Jimmy Fallon, a quote that's found in a Colbert article. That's kooky, right? It's called an indirect quotation, and this is how you format it within your text. Name the author of the borrowed quote in the text. The parenthetical citation should begin with the abbreviation quoted in, or QTD, period, in, followed by the author of your source who will appear on the works cited list. So here, Valdez, which you see in the parenthetical, that's actually your Stephen Colbert, and Honda Miki would be Fallon. Honda Miki says, cherry blossoms display, quote, beauty made sublime by transience. And this author, who wrote this line, or piece of a line, which the student has put in their paper, was actually found in something written by this person, Valdez. So we put Honda Miki, the quote, quoted in Valdez, page 23. Okay, so what do you do if you have a video recording? Well, a lot of YVC instructors, and of course you want to look at your assignment sheets to make sure about this for the specific paper you're working on. They'll oftentimes want you to put a timestamp, you know, where in the video were these words said? So where are you quoting? So your readers don't have to search through hours of YouTube on a video. Okay, so let's check this out. One juicy example of parody in the Growing Pains - The Mandalorian pastiche, quote, Grogu Pains, or title Grogu Pains, is the introduction of, quote, Grogery St. John, end quote, as the actor playing the child. And where is that found? It is found, it looks like on the 27th second through the 31st second This would be your minutes. This would be your hour. So the nice thing is no one can remember all this stuff, but we've got resources, Writing Center videos, the MLA handbook, all kinds of stuff to figure out what you're doing. But that's kind of how that works. 27 seconds through 31 seconds. And your instructor goes, cool, that's where this was actually found. What about if you have an encyclopedia or dictionary online? This does happen from time to time. Well, you can see here, you would actually list the name of the entry that you were researching. So in this case, the student was looking up facts about Boudica, the fantastic warrior of old. So in this case, they've got a quote here. Boudica, British queen of the Iceni during the 1st century CE, or Common Era, revolted against the oppressive, violent Roman rule over her people by gathering a fierce army that, quote, cut to pieces the Roman 9th Legion, end quote. Wow. Crazy. So, Boudica is that tells your instructor, hey, I was just looking up this actual word, this actual person, Boudica, in a dictionary or encyclopedia online. And I've set up some context and I've integrated my quote smoothly. Almost done. Part 2. Integrating sources in MLA. When you first use a source, introduce the borrowed material with a signal phrase that includes the full name of the author. Place the page number in the parentheses at the end of the sentence. In later citations of the same source, you may provide only the author's last name, either in the text or along with the page number in parentheses. 3 ways to integrate your sources into your paragraphs. This one we all know, quote, word for word, right? So record another person's, author's, if you will, exact words to preserve their accuracy or to relay especially vivid, well-phrased, or dramatic statements. And be careful when you're doing direct quotes. Oftentimes we'll find that students have the quote about 2/3 direct, word for word, but they didn't really pay close enough attention to the exact wording, and so sometimes the quote gets messed up, and your instructors can definitely tell. So in this case, the author is Salazar. Salazar claims, quote, limiting the viability of queer identities and communities to urban spaces, however, ignores contrasting rural environments which still provide opportunities for queerness, marginalization without specific classifications to prosper, end quote. And that was found on page 1 of a Salazar article. So, and we're going to be looking at this same piece written by this author, so you can see how it works 4 different ways. What if you want to paraphrase instead of quoting? Well, paraphrasing is basically restate another person's ideas in your own words. A paraphrase is usually a sentence or 2, is used for portions of a work, and does not necessarily condense the original version the way a summary does. So here you can see the direct quote in the slide above, and then the students put it in their own words to fit their paragraph better. If we only think of queer culture as possible and sustainable in cities, we miss how and when it flourishes in rural areas. And we're not plagiarizing because we've got Salazar right here, page 1. Summary, a little bit different. Concisely restate the main facts or ideas of a longer work, entire books, whole articles or essays, or portions of a work. When writing a summary, be brief, be accurate, and use your own words and style to express the idea. When summarizing an entire book, article, or essay, page numbers are unnecessary. Rad. So here we see, if we can imagine, instead of this being a quote, let's imagine this person read the entire article, and they have a lot of sources in their paper, so they quickly want to distill or summarize Salazar's entire main point or article. So according to Anthony Salazar, Ibis Gomez Vega's Send My Roots Rain shows how, and then it goes on there. So nicely summarized. Long quotations are a really cool option as well. When quoting more than 4 typed lines of prose or more than 3 lines of poetry, indent 1/2 inch from the left margin. Long quotations are often introduced by an informative sentence, usually followed by a colon. Quotation marks are unnecessary because of the indented form, and the period is placed at the end of the sentence instead of after the parenthetical reference. Make sure your academic writing is double-spaced. The example below is single-spaced to fit on this handout. So you can see, long quotes are long. So yes, this would be double-spaced in your paper. Over here would be the natural left-hand margin on Google Docs or Microsoft Word, but you're going to go in even further over here. So Anthony Salazar argues the following. There's our colon. Here is the long quote. It is word for word. We do not have quotations because this formatting shows your reader that it is a word for word quote. So no end quote, and then the period comes on the inside instead of the outside. In this case, this one's doubling as both the abbreviation .us and also the period. You don't want to leave your reader hanging or end a paragraph with a long quote. You always want to wrap it just like you would all your other quotes. So this student sets it up beautifully, gives us the long quote, and then unpacks it here with the bottom bun of the quote burger, if you've heard of that before. This quote reductive assumption, end quote, appeals to the urban-rural binary that ironically furthers the marginalization of queerness in rural contexts. So, well done, student. Almost done. Reminder, note, if you quote words and phrases that you've already quoted and cited in your paper, as in reductive assumption, which was right here in the example above, you can generally cite the source in the first instance only. Another reminder, make sure the in-text citation matches a corresponding entry on the works cited page, of course, where you give the full publication information for each source. So again, if I flip up, we've got the Salazar quoted, Salazar's words quoted, Salazar's words paraphrased, Salazar's words summarized, and then a long quote from Salazar entirely put in here as a direct quote, but a long quote. And then if you flip to the last page of your paper, which would be your works cited page, you see this perfect citation. Okay. Plagiarism, yikes! Plagiarism occurs when you intentionally or unintentionally give the impression that words or ideas from another person are your own. The best way to avoid plagiarism, a serious academic offense, is to make sure you have something to say about your topic first. Then follow the conventions of summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting to give credit to the other people whose information you're sharing with readers. Great. So, a couple last things here. Discrepancies. You may discover discrepancies between style guides, online APA resources, suggestions from Writing Center consultants, and instructions about using APA from your instructor. Golden rule, when in doubt, always check with your instructor. They're the ones that control your final grade, of course. This PowerPoint is based on the MLA Handbook 9th edition, Modern Language Association of America 2021. Sweet. And lastly, first, good luck on your in-text citations for MLA. And last thing here, non-discrimination notice for YVC. Yakima Valley College does not discriminate against any person on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, sex, genetic information, or age in admission, treatment, or participation in its programs, services, and activities, or in employment. All inquiries regarding compliance should be directed to the Executive Director of Human Resource Services, YVC, South 16th Avenue, and Nob Hill Boulevard, Yakima, Washington, 98902, or call 509-574-4670. Great. Bye.